Hello and welcome to episode 197 of Thrive by Additive-Free Lifestyle. We are Tracy and Jo, two sisters who are very passionate about asking questions and seeking information for things that make us curious. Thrive is a podcast show that will help you to lower your toxic load, guide you through various stages of life, and give you permission to ask questions and seek advice on topics that you may not yet understand. A bit like this podcast episode coming to you today. Tracy and I did not understand anything about this. So in today's episode, we talk to Jenny. And we've known Jenny for many, many years through the business that she runs with hoppers. She actually owns a business that produces artificial-free hundreds and thousands and sprinklers. Now, she's gone into some new work of rewiring the brain. How did you find this episode, Trace?
At first, I actually found it a little slow. I'm not going to lie. I was like, I'm not understanding this.
Mm-hmm.
She actually reminded me of someone I know. She's very calm in the way she talks and things. And I'm like, blah, 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 like, me and Jo, right? So I found it a little, I was like, I'm not understanding. And so I kind of, there was a little bit at the start that I was like, okay, I need to understand this better. So, and then once we got her talking, she was really nervous to start off with. Did you know that? I don't know if you were on when she said that, Jo. So I think she just was a little slow to start. But then when we got her talking, I'm like, oh my God, this makes so much sense to me now. I'm understanding this, right? My mind was like, yep, okay, I'm here. I'm ready. Teach me more.
I totally agree. By about sort of 10 minutes in, we were really into the flow and it was definitely very educational.
Yeah.
So stick with it, guys. Not that it's slow, not that it's not worth listening to at the start, not by any means of the stretch. That's not what we're saying, but it was like really, really juicy sort of towards the end there. So yeah, it was good. And it makes a lot of sense how we can really, really transform our lives through the power of our brain.
Yeah. And
it seems so simple, but then it's not. Like, we don't get taught it. It's so weird. Anywho, that's it from us. We'll let you get into this episode. Thank you so much, Jenny, for coming onto our podcast show.
Thank you for having me.
We're excited to talk with you today. This is actually new for Tracy and I, and so we're a little bit, what do we ask Jenny? I wonder how this conversation's going to go, but I think it's going to be really, really interesting, and we will learn a lot, but our audience will learn a lot as well. So we know you. We've known you for years in a different space than what we're talking about today, which is on a business side of things. And we would love for you to share with our audience who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, originally I trained and worked as a dietitian straight out of uni, and my work in that space then went on to public health and then into my own online business, which I've been running for the last 13 years or so. And that journey, as well as my own journey of health issues, has kind of led me to this space to find this work in neuroplasticity. So essentially I'm working with people who struggle with chronic health conditions so that they can transform their quality of life using neuroplasticity techniques to ease pain and sadness, elevate their health, and just transform their life so that they can live confidently and fully, because people with health conditions tend to find all of those things a struggle. So that's essentially what I do. Yeah.
Awesome. So what type of health conditions?
Any and all. Yeah. It can,
okay.
Yeah. I work with a lot at the moment, a lot just from my own connections with people who have like food sensitivities and chronic fatigue sort of chemical sensitivity, that sort of thing. But yeah, any and all.
Amazing. So you hit rock bottom recently, and we'd love for you to dive into that a little bit, and if that's okay, share with people your story, because I think that it will make sense as to how you've got to where you are now and why you teach what you teach.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's a bit of a long story. It actually started back when I was kind of a teenager. I was participating in triathlons and was pretty active, very go-getter, self-motivated. And I ended up getting quite sick a lot when I was studying for uni exams, and I realized stress was an issue, and I tried to control it, and that worked for a while. But then when I got married in my early 20s, then I ended up a whole host of things happened. I got a mold exposure, and then just my whole body kind of started to shut down with chronic fatigue. So I went from being able to not participate in triathlons to being on the couch, and I couldn't quite understand it. And so then I went on this whole journey through medical profession and all sorts of things, trying to understand and trying to get my life back. And I never really found anything that worked really well. What I found was when I found alternative treatments such as diet or nutritional supplements, that sort of thing, I did get a benefit for a while, and they helped a lot. But I found that I couldn't maintain it. Every time I went, oh, I'm good now, I would end up pushing myself more and then ending right back up where I started, or with new problems, new health conditions kind of arising, new dietary issues. So I suppose that kind of continued. Then I had children who had food issues, and that just sort of, spiraled for years on and off. Like I'd have success and go really well for a while, and then just come crashing back down again. And then in 2018, I had a really stressful year with work and just a whole bunch of other things happening, and I could feel myself sliding, like I was getting quite unwell. And I just got to the point where I sort of went, yeah, this can't be it. I've got a whole life ahead of me. This cannot be it for my life. And so we made this massive decision as a family to sell our house and move to the country, where the hope of a different lifestyle would change things for me. And that's kind of, to say the least, that's what's happened. And so in the day that excuse me, the day that I moved up here, I moved to stay with my sister, or we did, who was up in the country, the northeast. I met a family friend who'd come to visit her, and she'd had chronic regional pain syndrome for 10 years or so, and had managed to use this work similar to basically get her life back. She was running 10K, multiple times a week, and she had been couch-bound, bed-bound. She had been working for me for a while, but she couldn't even do the admin work for me. So that showed the progression. And I said to her, what are you doing? Like, what happened? And so she led me on this path to explore neuroplasticity and meditation, and I just dived in and learned as much as I possibly could, and just went, well, what have I got to lose? Because and it kind of made sense with my science background. Like once I said, show me the science, and it's funny because you don't actually need the science to do this work, but for me, I found it really useful because of my background, and it made sense to me. So I was able to just kind of give it a go and trust that it would work for me, and it did, and it worked really quickly. So
talk to us through what that is, like what the process is then. Like, what is neuroplasticity? What is well, not I think most of us know what meditation is, but how does it all work?
Yeah, so neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to rewire itself in response to stimulus. So originally, people thought that you couldn't do that. That once you got to a certain point in your life, your neurons were already in a certain position and you couldn't change them. And so the research over the last probably 10, 15 years ago in certain spaces is that is entirely possible. And there's some people that had done that I had come across that had done some work. And it funnily before, like 10 years before I found out about this stuff, I remember reading the book. I don't know if you've ever read it, but the brain that changes itself, Norman Deutsch. But he basically goes through, and he's a neuropsychologist and researcher, and he found that all these things could change in your body. So like people that had lost a limb and then had phantom pain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but they still remain to have pain after they lose a limb. And so they were able to train the body using mirrors to make the brain think that the body still had that arm, for example, like if you lost an arm. So they would use the right arm with a mirror to trick the brain into thinking that it had a left arm. And so, yeah, it basically was rewiring the brain to take the pain away.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. There's a couple of other things.
So what sort of things were you doing personally then to help yourself? So you had chronic fatigue, you had like you couldn't get out of bed very like things were like down, and you were, you were pretty crook. Were you suffering any other type of ailments? Like, did you have any skin issues? Did you have any other like gut issues, like digestive issues, or was it just the tiredness and the extreme fatigue?
No, many food sensitivities. With some of the changes I'd made with supplements and things, I had managed to get to a place, but I felt in 2018, I felt myself slipping. I lost dairy. Basically, I wasn't eating gluten, dairy, anything with additives. Fructose had slipped out, which I'd never had that problem before. So there was a whole load of things. Skin, what else? Cold tolerance. Like I just could not tolerate the cold at all. I run my heater at 21 degrees in the middle of winter, and I still couldn't stay warm. What else? Yeah, circulation, headaches, all manner of skin. Not eczema, but like rashy sort of stuff. Yeah.
It's amazing it's amazing what the body is saying, isn't it? I was listening to a podcast the other day with Nick Bear, and he was interviewing his new CEO. He runs a huge company in America, and he was talking to her about being a founder and an entrepreneur, because she used to be a founder of this company called Mush, and the stress that it caused on her body because she was a founder. She needed to put a heart pacemaker in, because she just worked herself into the ground and literally pretty much killed herself. And you were saying work was really hard, and like I just resonated so much with what you're saying and what this other podcast was saying, because, and for other people, you don't have to be a founder or an entrepreneur to have that type of stress, but it just creeps up on you, doesn't it? And you just start to get used to it. And then a little bit more comes on, a little bit more and a little bit more, until you actually hit rock bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, there's certainly many different ways. And that's one of the things that I kind of teach, is that we kind of have these patterns that we generate over our lifetime based on experiences we had as a child before our brain became fully conscious. And so we create these patterns that over our lifetime lead to illness, or whatever it is that you've got going on in your life. And a lot of this work is about not breaking the patterns, but taking the emotion out of them and keeping the wisdom, so that you can use that information to take you forward, but not live with the stress of those experiences. So yeah, it's quite an interesting space from that.
So talk to us a little bit about that then. Like what actually do you do?
Yeah, so in my work, there's do you want me to explain like the core aspect of
Yeah, so if I came to you and said, all right, I'm currently in perimenopause. I've had thyroid issues since I was 16. I've got hot flushes. I've got things going on. I'm tired a lot. I'm obviously on some thyroid medication. Like what would be and that's a really common thing. People have a thyroid
Mm,
issues is a really common thing. So
yeah,
if
for
someone
sure.
came to you with something like that, like what would we do? What would happen?
Yeah, so what I do is I actually run group coaching programs so that people can share their experiences and learn off each other and inspire each other. So the actual work that I do is kind of a system that's been put together that integrates all the aspects of neuroplasticity and epigenetics and everything to allow a person to make these changes. And so sorry, I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but when I did all the work, when I did the meditation, when I did all the work and the learning that I did, I kind of pulled all the information from all different sources to help me. But then I came across this work, the Magnetic Mind work, and it just pulled everything into a system that then meant you could teach that. And then when I learned, well, hang on, I don't actually always have to be trying to fix myself. I'm not actually broken. I have the power within me to change this. Then I knew that I needed to teach it to people. So essentially there's 5 core steps that people need to go through in order to make the neurological changes in their brain. And it requires work and effort to change that, because the brain doesn't want to change. It's neurologically wired in a certain way, and it's like 95% of our thoughts every day are actually unconscious thoughts. And so we need to tap into the 5% of the consciousness where we can identify the issues and make the changes. And so the 5 steps take you through that and sort of support you, and that if you like, I can take you through what they are.
I think that would be really helpful. Yeah.
So the first one is that you have to choose something that you really want to have, but it can't be from a place of lack or fixing yourself. So you can't say, oh, I've got all these problems, I need to fix them. Because that's what we've been doing all this time and it's not working. And so you actually have to flip that model and say, I'd really just love to have health and vitality. I really love to be able to, and then find what it means for you, what health and vitality means for you. So whether that's, being able to eat out with friends or, just eat a wide variety of foods, whether that means, I want to go and climb a mountain, or I want to travel, without struggle, I just want to be able to enjoy my life. So you have to find a way of flipping that sort of negative slant on how you think about things. So that's the first step. And even that, that's quite complex for a lot of people to get themselves out of that mindset. The second one is that you have to create the emotion of being in that end result as if it's already true. So the brain doesn't know the difference between something that you've created in your imagination versus something that you've actually experienced. So it's pretty powerful, right, when you think about that, because it means that every single thought you have is leading you in a certain direction. And if the brain doesn't know the difference, then we can make it have negative impacts, but the other we can make it have positive impacts. And it's like, if you have a lot of stress, you generate cortisol, right? Which then eventually leads to illness and disease. So we're actually doing the opposite. We're creating positive emotions in the body, which then lead to positive chemicals and, proteins and enzymes and everything being released, which will then resolve the issues that you have without you actually concentrating on that. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the emotion of the end result, so feeling the joy, the bliss, the freedom, all the things that come with having those experiences that you want, is the thing that kind of transforms the body. It's what starts to rewire the brain, and you have to keep doing it over and over and over again until the brain says, oh, hang on, this old pattern is not the pattern that we want. It's the new pattern, you know, this it's kind of deleting the old pattern just by going for the things that you
So
want.
is that like when someone, okay, so you might be in a situation and it's out of your control and you've got this worry and fear of, what if they do this? What if this happens? And we automatically go into this state of fear, which is the fight and flight, cortisol, you know, all the bad things, because that's this automatic response. But if we were like, okay, let's step outside this whatever it might be, your experience that you're having, because it's out of our control, and we can control what we can by changing our mind and changing our thoughts. Because I'm really huge on this. Like, I try and talk to my kids about this. Like, if there's something maybe happening at school, as an example, and they're like, oh, mum, but blah, 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 blah. I'm like, but you don't have any control over that person. You can control your reaction and your thoughts to that situation. And is it like that? Is that what we're trying to teach
Yeah, it's
them?
exactly like that. It's exactly like that. It's just that we understand it in that model, right? We understand that it's kind of like a fake it till you make it kind of thing. You have to trick your body into thinking a certain way so it can change it. And
because even Joe doing the Ironman and things, like, you were so like, I'm doing this, like, I have this control, I can do this. And so it's teaching, again, like you're saying, rewiring our brain to be like, I can actually do this. Not, oh, I don't know, I'm going to try, but what if I can't? You know, all those normal thoughts that sometimes we have. Like, no, I will do this, and I'm going to feel this way at the end.
And my body is perfectly capable and is powerful and can handle whatever I ask it to do. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, starting to make sense to me. All right, so that's step 2. So step 3.
Step 3 is recognizing where you are now. So noticing what are the beliefs and the stories you're telling yourself about that. Because that's what stops us from taking action. So, you know, it might be a judgment about, I can't do this, or I don't have enough skills, or I'm not worthy, or, you know, like you were just talking about, so many things. Can my body actually do it? Is this real? You know, can I actually believe this is possible? Maybe it's possible for somebody else, but it's not possible for me. You know, there's so many beliefs that people have. And so when you recognize that, it creates a tension. It sort of says to the body, well, I want this, but this is where I am. So it kind of creates a bit of an elastic band effect to help take you where you want to go. And in order to be allowing you to take the action that you need to take to get to the next step, we use the neuroplasticity techniques to remove the emotion out of that so that you can move forward. So that's what I was sort of saying before.
And would that emotion most often be fear?
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Okay.
There's a whole lot of stuff that comes up. It can be, like I said before, it can be a lot to do with patterns that we've created from our childhood, you know.
Yeah, a lot of learned behavior.
I mean, I was just sharing the other day with my group an example of when I was a child. I think I was probably about 4. I remember my grandma asking me if I wanted a cup of tea. I wanted to try some, and I said no, I didn't. And I felt pressured into doing that, and I really didn't want to. And then when I had it and I didn't like it, she wasn't very happy with me. And so I actually realized that created a pattern in me that said that I'm not heard. Like, no, you know, and therefore it's not safe to speak up because you won't be heard. And so if somebody really wants something that means that they need to be heard, they can't do it because they've got this block that says it's not safe to speak up.
Yeah.
And so they're the sorts of things that we kind of that will come up, because what happens is when you start to go for what you want, the resistance comes up. You know, the stories in your mind, the self-talk, you catch yourself saying these things, all the things I was saying before. Does this really work? Can I do it? Yeah, all those kind of things come up, and that's what we use all the processes and techniques to keep people in those steps, like in the emotion of the end result, to keep people believing, to keep them taking action so that they can actually get to that end result that they want. And
it's actually really powerful. We see it a lot in our doTERRA community. The people that want the business, they get stuck in, oh, what will my friends think? What will someone else think? And like, I would see this in probably a lot of businesses that are in that model, like the direct selling model as well, because, I've had friends that have done Norwex or all the different things. And I love that model of business. Like, I'm a fan. So for me, I'm not scared to be in that type of business. However, there are a lot of taught beliefs from previous generations down through this business model. And they would be, they're blocks for a lot of people. And some people have monetary blocks as well.
Yes,
like, I'm like,
yes.
I don't, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, bring on the money. Like, I don't have any monetary blocks at all. But some people do have a real fear, and I don't know where that comes from. And that would be something like you. It could have been something that happened at 4. But yeah, so, this is so interesting. Okay.
Think about the amount of people that you hear in your life say, about rich people, they're and I think that's where a lot of money
greedy
blocks.
or evil.
I think that's where a lot of it comes from is they're all right because they've got money, or you could be seeing someone drive around in a Porsche and you're like, oh, look at that dickhead, because like it's just automatically this perception of, and I think that the money blocks comes from a lot of that, where we don't know if that, we don't know.
There's generational things too. Like, women you stay at home, you have children, you provide for that, you care for your family. Like, there's generational things there too that would help, that would stop a lot of women have success in business, especially because of generational trauma, I guess, for want of a better word. So yeah, I think it's
it's funny, isn't it? Like, our husbands have never had a problem with us earning more money with them, but a lot of husbands do.
Yeah,
certainly my ex-partner certainly did. And anyway, off topic.
But you're absolutely right, though. I mean, we're conditioned to have these beliefs, the way that we function as a society.
Conditioning. That's it. Conditioning. That's the word.
Yeah, it is, exactly. And you know what? I've totally conditioned my children. Like, they will barrack for Essendon, and there is no other football team allowed. And, but jokes aside, but we unintentionally condition our children because of our beliefs have, seeped down to them, because they're our morals and our values as well that seep down to them. And some of them will be good and some of them will be bad. And I've never been a perfect mum, but hopefully I've got decent kids out of it. But again, it is that, and it's worth knowing as a parent, that is actually what happens. Even our beliefs around additives and preservatives could be a factor in issues that arise with our children in the future. Like, I have a daughter who has some issues around food, and one of them is that she felt very restricted on what she could and couldn't eat. And in my brain, I'm like, I haven't restricted anything. But in her teenage brain, she's now 20, she felt very restricted, and now she has some issues around food, and she doesn't mind me sharing little bits like that. But yeah, it is really important for us as parents to be aware of things that we might be conditioning our children on unintentionally with love, full love, because we want to do these best things for our children and families, but unintentionally could be causing problems in the future. So it is just worth knowing that too.
Yeah, although not placing blame on yourself for that either, because
and there isn't.
Sometimes,
but yes, it can happen. It can happen.
Yes, exactly. It does, and it does. It's just that if you understand that that's the way of life, that's basically how. That's what we're here to kind of overcome, and so the conditioning when you're a child, sometimes it can be something so small, like I don't know, say for example, a sibling's playing with the parent and you want more attention and you don't feel like you're getting enough love, so you have to do something to get more love. And then that just then creates this pattern over your life that I have to do this to get more love, to feel love. And so, and that's like harmless. That's not your fault, you know, because essentially before the age of 7, we have different brainwave patterns. And it's like a child is in the same brainwave pattern that you'd be in when you were falling asleep. You know, when you're in that kind of half dream state. So they don't actually know the difference of what's real and what's not in their life. So that's why they create these stories. So it's not your fault. It's just a natural part of who we are as people. It's just that we haven't been taught that we are actually powerful and can change that once we get to that age. And that's kind of the important thing. And that's once we as, you know, adults know how to do this stuff and apply it in our lives, and this can be applied in any situation like what we're talking about, not just in health, but that's just my area of passion. But once we as a society have this as a norm, then our kids are going to have huge benefits from that as a world going forward. So that's why I'm so passionate about.
We've said quite often over the years, haven't we, Jo? Like, imagine if we were taught this as kids, like so many times. If I had $1 for every time I'd said, imagine if we were taught this in school. Imagine if meditation was a everyday occurrence in school, and you know, and kids were taught to think, like you're saying, rewire some of these patterns and think and know, not just think, but know that they can achieve and know that they can do and know that they are. Like, it would be just so powerful. All right, so we're up to step 3. So step 4.
We got a bit
we did get a bit sidetracked, but I think it's important to I had to
just before
understand it myself. So that's why, sorry. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I was just thinking, just before I do step 4, I'll just let you know they're actually doing some research in schools with meditation and kids at the moment, and they're finding massive, like, powerful impacts of in behavior and stuff on kids, kind of like the same impact that you see, you know, when you take additives out of a kid's diet. Like, meditation just, you know, adds a whole nother layer to that.
It does.
And even
sorry, I keep butting in.
No, that's okay. Like, only like 5 to 10 minutes. It's not even a massive amount of time, but the impacts that they've seen is incredible.
I mean, the rise in stress, sleep disorders, eating disorders, you know, in our children is so high, and it's just getting higher. And like, we need more of this. Like, we need this in schools.
Yeah, we do. We need
look at suicide rates in children. It's horrific. Horrific.
Yeah. It's crazy. I just realized that I had actually given you 4 steps already.
Oh, okay.
So the first one is choose what you love to have. The second one is create the emotion of it. The third one is recognize where you are now. The fourth one is to remove the block. So that's the processes that we use and to help people keep moving through. And then the fifth one is to take action. And it has to be kind of aligned action with your goal. It can't be just like a to-do, you know. It has to be, even if it's something that you have to do to get to that end result, it comes from a different lens, that you're not thinking about it as a chore or something that you have to do. It's something that you're going to do because you want that end result, and it will get you there. And so, and then it also involves tapping into your intuition. What is the best thing for me to take forward? And particularly when you use meditation or some of the techniques that we use, it helps your brain get into that kind of more relaxed state where you can tap into that intuition and say, this is the best next step for me. And sometimes it might not be what we call like a masculine action, like an actual doing something physical. It might be that, you know, you just have to work on changing the thought patterns and catching the thought patterns in your brain over and over again. Or it could be, you know, I'm going to commit to to doing my meditation, every morning, or I'm going to use this process to overcome something and that's stopping me. So yeah, there's action. Because if you don't take action, like even if you remove the emotion using the processes, if you don't take the action, then you're not proving to yourself that it works. So yeah, you need that action, and you need the successes from that action, and to celebrate the successes from that action so that you can actually tell your brain, this is what I want now, this is me, this is who I am. And that every time you do that, you create another, change in the neural pathways to a
and
different.
How important is it to celebrate? Hey, like we don't do it enough again as a society, because look at them over there. So like, because we have this full poppy syndrome that we've been, conditioned to believe is a thing, when in actual fact, no, we get to celebrate that we'd achieved something, and it could be the smallest of things.
Exactly.
Like I celebrated when my kids got their license. We celebrated when they got their first job. Really, like they're small things in the history of their life. But we've got to celebrate those little wins, like all along the way, and teach our kids to celebrate and not be fearful of celebrating, because I think that's really impactful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, like I said, that celebration, that's what we do in the coaching. Like it's always sharing what's something that you've done this week, no matter how hard your week has been, like that you can say that you did, that's getting you closer to your end result. And that's what I help people do, is to work through that, to make sure they're staying in that kind of focus and always coming back to to their goals and helping them sort of, and some of the some of the clients at the moment, like they're just flying along, like absolutely flying along. Like one lady, I don't think she was even in the program 4 or 5 weeks, and she changed her whole diet. She just decided that's what I'm going to do, and she full on committed to it. And yeah, it's and other ones, working on their chemical sensitivities, like just, little bit by little bit. But you can see, like, each time they come back and go, I did this, I changed my thought patterns around it, and I didn't react. Okay, well, maybe. And then, it just gives them a little bit more confidence to go back and go, all right, another opportunity comes up.
How empowering.
Yeah.
It's so empowering for somebody. When you talk about meditation, are there different forms of meditation that you recommend? Like for me, laying down in a quiet spot and meditating.
Oh God, that is so not Joe.
It just doesn't work, like for me. Like I can't do it. But
is that your conditioning? You
no,
can't do it. Like you actually could.
Yes.
True, but what I find is helpful for me is journaling and like going for a walk. Like, are they different forms of meditation, or do you need to actually be quiet and properly meditate?
Okay, so that's a big question. So first, I'll just say that I can totally relate, because that's where I was before I started on this work. I just went, meditation, like that's just to help you relax. Like if I'm going to relax, I want to go for a bike ride or go for a walk, or I don't want to sit still. Like that just seemed like a waste of time. But once I understood why meditation works, because yes, there are different types of meditation, right? There's the mindfulness stuff, like when you just sort of maybe going for a walk or out in the garden and you're appreciating the beauty and being grateful for life and that sort of thing. And then there's also meditation where you just sit in music and just relax and just hear your thoughts and get out of your body and and just notice what comes to you. The meditation that I do, and personally but also in this work, is more guided meditation to allow you to go through those 5 steps. So it takes you through those 5 steps. And so it's that flipping that information in your brain. It's creating the emotion, because when you're in meditation, if you're relaxed enough, you're not, you want to be able to get outside your thoughts. And I know what you're saying, that it's really hard to get outside your thoughts, and it is, and it does take practice to do that. But the guided meditation keeps you on track. You know how like there's different types, you know, people sometimes do chants, that sort of thing. They do that to stop their brain from thinking. Whereas this is kind of more of an active way of stopping your brain from thinking. You're programming. It's almost like a programming.
Yeah,
not like hypnotherapy, but like, yeah, it's a way
And
of,
it's
because I can do guided meditation, and I find that really beneficial. But when I have to do it on my own, I just fall asleep. Like in a yoga class, it's hilarious because when we do the like laying down on the floor at the end, and you know, sit with your own thoughts, I'm always the one that falls asleep, and she goes, and I mean, this was a few years ago when I was doing yoga, but she would always say, now try your best not to fall asleep. And then next minute I'd have her rubbing my feet, waking me up. So like, I do need that guided help to keep me on track.
And that's why it's called a practice. So I've heard this before, like yoga is a yoga practice. Meditation is a meditation practice. And they put that word on it because we have to practice. It's not something that comes naturally to us. It's not something that is easy for most of us. We have to practice at it. And that's why I love when they say yoga practice, you know, meditation practice, because, I keep bumping my microphone, because we do have to practice at it, because it is hard for most of us. Like I'll lay there at the end of a yoga. I'm like, what are we doing for dinner? What's cooking? I'm like, come back to what she's saying, come back to what she's saying. And I've got to practice it and keep coming back to what she's telling me, you know, and it's hard.
And that's when you quiet your brain, that's when, like I said, your intuition comes in and that sort of thing. And it's kind of, when you say you're falling asleep, like sometimes it's a fine balance, right? So you actually want to be in that state where you're almost asleep, but not quite. And so that's why sometimes you do fall asleep, because you've managed to relax your body enough. But when they do things like hypnotherapy, that you're putting the body into that state where you're almost asleep, but not quite, because that's when you're more out of your thoughts. And so that's where you want to be when you're doing the meditation, because it's more suggestible to information. It's more, and so when you're in that state and you're relaxed, but you're not quite asleep, that you can then program it much more easily. And that's why meditation is useful, because it's basically getting you into a state where you can program your brain to a different way more easily. You can do this work without meditation. It just takes a lot longer.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I can understand now when you said that you can work with anyone, because it doesn't actually matter what type of condition you've got. And I imagine that this would work for pain as well. Like if you've got chronic back pain, leg pain, knee pain, whatever pain, like physical pain as well, because you really would be rewiring your brain to think different thought patterns.
And yes, and I've done that too. So I must have forgotten to mention before, but like, you know how I said that I was doing triathlons, like, so for 20 something years, I could not exercise. Like I had to walk with orthotics. If I didn't, I couldn't wear sandals. Like I literally had pain all of the time, like just muscle pain and fatigue, like that. Just even if I got, even if I was really relaxed and not too much going on in my life, I could get maybe 2 or 3 weeks into doing exercise, even if I just started slowly. But then I would always get sick, or would always hurt myself, or something would always happen. And again, I created this pattern where that just happened every single time. And so I could not exercise for like I said, 20 something years. But like probably within, I'd say 4, 5 months of doing this work. Like I don't have any pain anymore.
Wow.
I do whatever exercise I want. I work on the property. I can bike ride, I can ski. Like I don't have any, it's just gone. Like I don't, like I said, it seems, it seems miraculous, and it kind of is, but yeah. And there's people in my group that are doing the same thing, that have got chronic pain, that, they're teaching themselves when it comes on, like to change the thought patterns around it, and it's going, and they're like, oh, and just
Amazing.
really starting to see how powerful it is for themselves as well. So yeah.
The power of the mind, hey?
Yeah.
Yes,
We've
yeah.
heard that. I've heard that for my whole life, the power of the mind, but we don't get taught like this.
No, this is another level entirely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you do run a workshop. I'd love for you to share with everyone about that so that they can learn more from you.
So, I mean, the workshop that I run is to teach people the basic concepts of this, but a lot of the stuff that I've kind of covered today, but maybe in a bit more detail so people can really understand it. Yeah, so that I do run workshops for that, but I also then offer individual or group coaching, and that's the main component of what I do. And that basically what we do is we run it 2 sessions a week to keep. The first one is trying to get people set up for the week, and the second one is to keep them going. And they seem to love that whole accountability, but just if someone's having a bad day, then the others will pick them up. And so that, we always have like a component at the start where we share our wins and share what's going on, and then at the end, discussion, something that's coming up, something that people don't understand, and then just gives them a few days then to take action and to come back and go, oh, well, I did that and this worked, but now I've got this block, so now I want to work on that. And that's kind of how we flow with that, and it seems to be working really, really well.
It's amazing.
So good.
Amazing.
Sorry,
Well,
I was going to say, in every session that I do, I take people through those 5 steps. So like, we do an education component, like just explain something in a different way that, maybe people might be struggling with. And then, going through the 5 steps, taking them through a process that then allows them to choose an action that they're going to take for the next few days or week, and then keep moving. So, yeah.
Yeah, so good for accountability. Where can people find you?
Probably the best way is through my website, which is www.aurielminds.com.au, and Auriel is AURIEL Auriel Minds.
Awesome.
And on there I've actually got a link. You can put in your information and get a copy of a meditation that I've created that helps you see the intention that you want. So, I said you want to get into that emotion of the end result, so it helps you get into that, and people can use that on a daily basis to start to rewire their brain and to get them into that state. Well, who do I want to be today? What am I creating? And it's really powerful component of this work that people might like to do. And they can find that on the front page of the website.
Well, we will definitely put all the details in our show notes so people can find you over there as well. And thank you so much for your time. This has been really, really insightful.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. Like I said, I for me, when I realized how powerful this stuff was, and I felt I had the impacts on myself, knowing, my experiences over time and just my science background and my health, experiences in the health system, I was like, people need to know this, and so that's why I'm so passionate about sharing it with people, because it literally is life-changing. And I want other people to have that same experience that I've had, because anyone can do it. You just need to commit to it. So
good. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We hope you got so much out of this episode, but we do have a favor to ask of you. You know how people generally like to help other people? Well, if you would like to help us and our business and spread this message and just help people at the end of the day, can you please subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it? And if you could rate it out of 5 stars, that would be amazing. And what would be even better is if you left a written review.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you know someone that you think might help from listening to this episode, please share it with them. You can copy the link and you can send it to them in a text message or in a Facebook message or whatever it might be. But please share it with them, because the more people that hear this message around, especially around helping our brains work a little better, they can be a little bit more mindful. There's so many people that I could think of immediately that could really, really use this episode. So please share it with friends and family.
Yeah, look, I don't want to rattle on, but I was thinking about this the other day, is I think people underestimate themselves in the power of helping others. Like, you don't have any idea what type of impact you can have on somebody else by saying, hey, I heard this podcast. I think you might really like it. Have a listen. And what if somebody then decides to go on and learn more from Jenny, only using this podcast as an episode? We've got many out there you can share. But you could actually change somebody's life by sharing the information that you've heard today.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is cool. Okay, guys, we'll see you next week.